10 grand says I'll have her on her back before the month is out. Those words about my wife still make my blood boil. I wasn't supposed to hear them. Nobody was. But fate has a way of revealing the darkness hiding behind expensive suits and corner offices. My name is Daniel Morgan. I'm 41, work as a cybersecurity specialist, and I've been married to Rebecca for 12 years. We live in a modest 3-bedroom in the suburbs of Seattle with our 10-year-old son, Ethan. We're not rich, but we've always been happy. At least that's what I thought until that rainy Tuesday night when everything changed. I'd met my old college roommate, Keith, for drinks at Morrison's, a high-end bar downtown. I rarely splurge on $20 cocktails, but Keith was visiting from Chicago, and we had some catching up to do. That's when I spotted him. James Harrington, CEO of Archer Dynamics, the tech company where Rebecca worked as marketing director. He was sitting in a private booth with 2 other executives, all of them red-faced from too much scotch. I wouldn't have paid attention, but I heard Rebecca's name. "Morgan's wife," Harrington said, loud enough for me to catch. "You've seen her, the brunette with the legs that won't quit." My blood went cold. Keith was still talking about his new boat, but I couldn't hear him anymore. I shifted in my seat, angling to catch more of Harrington's conversation. "James, you're out of your mind," said a balding man I recognized as Archer's CFO, Peter Coleman. "She's not like the others. She wears her wedding ring like a shield." "That's what makes it interesting," Harrington laughed, swirling his drink. 10 grand says I'll have her on her back before the month is out." "You're on," said the third man, someone I didn't recognize, "but only because I enjoy watching you lose money." They clinked glasses, and I felt something dark and primal awaken inside me. "Dan, you okay?" Keith was staring at me. "You look like you've seen a ghost." I downed my whiskey in one gulp. "I think I just did." When I got home, Rebecca was curled up on the couch, laptop balanced on her knees, working on a presentation. Her dark hair was pulled back in a messy bun, and she was wearing my old college sweatshirt. She looked up and smiled when I walked in, but her expression quickly changed. "What's wrong?" she asked, closing her laptop. "You look terrible." I sat beside her, my hands shaking slightly. "I saw Harrington tonight, at Morrison's." Her smile faded. "And?" "He was with Coleman and some other guy. They were talking about you, Beck." Rebecca tensed. She'd mentioned Harrington's wandering eyes before, how he'd stand too close during meetings or find excuses to touch her arm when speaking. "Nothing she couldn't handle," she'd assured me. "What did he say?" she asked quietly. "He made a bet. $10,000 that he could. That you and he would—" I couldn't finish the sentence. Rebecca's face flushed with anger. "He what?" "He bet he could seduce you before the month ends." Rebecca stood abruptly, pacing our living room. "That arrogant, disgusting bastard. I knew he was creepy, but this is criminal." "We should report him," I suggested. "Go to HR tomorrow." Rebecca laughed bitterly. "HR? Coleman runs HR, Dan. They're drinking buddies. And I'm just a woman crying harassment against the Golden Boy CEO who tripled company value in 4 years." "Then quit. We'll figure out the money." "No," she said firmly. "I worked too hard for this position. I'm not giving it up because some entitled prick thinks I'm part of his midlife crisis fantasy." I stood, taking her hands in mine. "Then what do we do?" A dangerous smile spread across her face, one I'd never seen before. "We make him regret ever saying my name." That night, as Rebecca slept beside me, I lay awake, a plan forming in my mind. Harrington had no idea who he was dealing with. By day, I was a corporate cybersecurity consultant. But my real expertise, the skills I didn't list on LinkedIn, came from 5 years working for a government agency that officially doesn't exist. If Harrington wanted to play games, I'd show him what happened when you target the wife of someone who used to hack foreign intelligence services for a living. Game on. The next morning, I called in sick and set up Command Central in our home office. First step, reconnaissance. I needed to know everything about James Harrington, his schedule, habits, weaknesses, secrets. The digital trail people leave is astonishing if you know where to look. By noon, I had accessed his company email through a backdoor I'd discovered months ago during a security audit I'd performed for Archer. Ironic, I know. Most of his messages were standard business communications, but a folder labeled personal revealed a pattern of inappropriate exchanges with female employees. Nothing explicitly criminal, but definitely grounds for termination if the board saw them. I also discovered he had a standing racquetball game at the downtown athletic club every Thursday at 7 p.m. with Peter Coleman, followed by drinks at the Capitol Grill. Perfect. That evening when Rebecca came home, I showed her what I'd found. This is just the beginning, I explained. We need more. Something concrete that proves he's not just a creep, but a liability to the company. Rebecca set down her purse with determined precision. I have an idea. He's been pushing for one-on-one strategy sessions for weeks. I've always found excuses, but tomorrow I'll accept. Are you sure? I asked, concerned. Absolutely, she replied, steel in her voice, but I'll need some equipment. The next day, Rebecca went to work wearing a lightweight blazer with a tiny camera hidden in the lapel, military grade, courtesy of a former colleague who owed me a favor. The audio feed transmitted directly to my laptop. Testing, testing, Rebecca whispered while alone in her office. Dan, can you hear me? Loud and clear, I confirmed via text. Remember, let him talk. Get him to be specific about his intentions. At 2 p.m., she knocked on Harrington's door for their strategy session. Through the camera, I watched him look up from his desk, his face lighting up with predatory satisfaction. Rebecca, come in. Close the door behind you, would you? She did, moving to sit in one of the chairs across from his desk. No, he said, patting the couch against the wall. Let's be comfortable. This could take a while. Rebecca hesitated, then sat on the couch. Harrington immediately joined her, sitting close enough that their knees almost touched. I've been reviewing your proposal for the Carter account, he began, his tone professional, but his eyes repeatedly dropping to her legs. Impressive work. Thank you, Rebecca replied coolly. I think it's our best chance at landing an 8-figure client. Agreed, but I'm more interested in your thoughts on the Watson strategy. Perhaps we could discuss it over dinner tonight? Rebecca tilted her head. Dinner? I usually head straight home after work. One dinner, Rebecca. You've turned down 3 invitations already. His hand moved to rest on her knee. I'm beginning to think you're avoiding me. She shifted slightly but didn't remove his hand. Not avoiding, just careful about appearances. Harrington laughed. Appearances? We're both adults. There's nothing wrong with 2 colleagues having dinner. And is that all it would be? Rebecca asked pointedly. His smile widened as his hand slid slightly higher. That depends entirely on chemistry, doesn't it? And I think we have plenty. Rebecca removed his hand, but gently. James, I'm married. So? Marriage is just a piece of paper. It doesn't have to stop you from enjoying life's pleasures. He leaned closer. I see how unhappy you are. How underappreciated. Your husband works in what? IT? He can't possibly understand the pressures you face, the ambitions you have. I felt my fist clench as I watched, but Rebecca remained calm. You seem very confident about my marriage, she observed. I'm good at reading people, Rebecca. It's why I'm successful. He stood, walking to a cabinet where he retrieved a bottle of whiskey and 2 glasses. Drink? No, thank you. It's a bit early for me. He poured himself a generous measure anyway. You know, I'm heading to the Archer Lodge in Aspen this weekend. Beautiful place. Private. The company jet leaves Friday evening. He took a sip, watching her over the rim of his glass. You should join me. For work? Rebecca asked innocently. Harrington laughed. Let's call it a performance review, one that could significantly impact your year-end bonus, perhaps even a promotion to VP. Are you suggesting my professional advancement depends on joining you in Aspen? His expression hardened slightly. I'm suggesting that those who understand how business really works tend to advance faster. Those who don't, well, they often find themselves plateauing. The threat was clear. I watched Rebecca's hands clench briefly before she relaxed them. I'll think about it, she said, standing to leave. Harrington caught her arm. Don't think too long. The offer expires Friday at 5 p.m. His voice dropped. And Rebecca, this conversation remains between us. Discretion is another quality I value in my executives. When she returned to her office, she whispered into the camera. Did you get all that? Every word, I confirmed via text. Come home. We need to plan our next move. That night, Rebecca and I sat at our kitchen island, reviewing the footage. The images were crystal clear. The audio damning. It's a solid start, I said, but not enough. We need him to be more explicit about the quid pro quo. Trust me, he will be, Rebecca said grimly. He's getting impatient. His 30-day window is closing, and he has 10 grand on the line. I still think we should go to the board with this. Rebecca shook her head. The board members are his golf buddies. We need something nuclear, something they can't ignore. I nodded, then laid out my plan. Tomorrow's Thursday. Harrington will be at the Downtown Athletic Club for racquetball, then the Capitol Grill. While he's occupied, I'll access his office. Rebecca's eyes widened. Breaking and entering now? That's a felony, Dan. It's not breaking if I have legitimate access to the building, I pointed out. I still have the security credentials from when I did their system audit last year. As far as anyone knows, I'm just there working late. And what exactly are you looking for? Evidence of financial misconduct, sexual harassment settlements, anything that makes him a liability the board can't protect. Rebecca bit her lip. This is getting dangerous. More dangerous than being alone with him in Aspen, I countered. She conceded the point with a nod. Be careful. If you're caught, I won't be, I assured her. This is what I used to do, remember? The next evening, I parked 3 blocks from Archer headquarters, wearing khakis and a button-down shirt, standard IT consultant attire. I carried a laptop bag containing various tools of my former trade, a specialized USB drive loaded with custom software, a signal jammer, and a device that could clone security cards. The night guard barely looked up when I scanned my credentials. Working late, Mr. Morgan? Server upgrade, I explained with a tired smile. The glamorous life of IT. Better you than me, he chuckled, returning to his sports magazine. Harrington's office was on the top floor, corner suite with glass walls offering panoramic views of the Seattle skyline. The door required both keycard access and a code, but I'd anticipated this. During my security audit, I'd installed a discrete backdoor in the system, standard procedure to test vulnerability, but one I'd forgotten to remove afterward. Inside, I worked methodically. First, I connected my specialized drive to Harrington's computer, bypassing the login screen. My software began copying his hard drive while I searched his physical files. The third drawer of his desk was locked. Using a set of picks disguised as a pen, I had it open in seconds. Inside was a folder labeled HR Special Cases. Bingo. The folder contained settlement agreements with 3 former female employees. Each had received substantial payouts in exchange for signing NDAs regarding Harrington's alleged misconduct. The company had paid, protecting their Golden Boy CEO from scandal. I photographed every page, then continued searching. In a hidden compartment beneath his desk, I found a small notebook containing what appeared to be a second set of financial records. Flipping through it, I discovered evidence of embezzlement. Harrington had been skimming from the company's European operations, transferring funds to an offshore account. Suddenly, my phone vibrated. A text from Rebecca. Emergency, H left game early, heading back to office now. My heart raced. Harrington was supposed to be drinking whiskey with Coleman 5 miles away. I quickly replaced everything exactly as I'd found it, disconnected my drive, and erased all evidence of my presence. Just as I was about to leave, I heard the elevator ding. No time for the main corridor. I slipped onto the balcony that wrapped around the executive floor, keeping low to avoid being seen through the glass walls. The October air was frigid 30 stories up, the narrow ledge slippery from earlier rain. Through the glass, I watched Harrington enter his office, Coleman trailing behind him. They seemed to be arguing. I couldn't hear their words, but Coleman's face was flushed with anger. Harrington dismissed him with a wave, and Coleman stormed out. Alone now, Harrington went straight to the hidden compartment where I'd found the notebook. He removed it, flipped through it with a concerned expression, then made a phone call. I needed to move. Carefully, I edged along the balcony toward the fire escape at the far end. One slow step at a time, back pressed against the building, trying to ignore the dizzying drop below. I was halfway there when my phone vibrated again. The movement was slight, but enough to throw me off balance. For one heart-stopping moment, I teetered on the edge. My hands shot out, grabbing a decorative outcropping. Pain lanced through my shoulder as I pulled myself back against the wall, heart thundering in my chest. After a few deep breaths, I checked my phone. Where are you? H just called a late meeting for tomorrow. Mandatory. I didn't respond. Couldn't risk any more distractions. 20 excruciating minutes later, I reached the fire escape and made my way down to an empty service alley. Only when I was safely in my car did I text Rebecca back. Got something big, home in 30. When I walked through our front door at 10:45 p.m., Rebecca nearly tackled me with a hug. Never do that to me again, she said, voice muffled against my chest. I thought you'd been caught. Not caught, I assured her, but it was close. Harrington showed up while I was still in his office. Her face paled. What? How did you? Balcony ledge, 30 floors up. Not recommended. Jesus, Dan! She punched my arm. This isn't worth your life. It was worth it for what I found. I pulled out my phone and showed her the photos. 3 sexual harassment settlements the company paid to keep quiet. And this, I swiped to the images of the notebook. He's been embezzling. Millions, possibly. That's why he came back early tonight. Something spooked him. Rebecca studied the images, her expression shifting from concern to cold determination. This is it. This is what we need. We take it to the board tomorrow, I said. No, she replied, surprising me. Not yet. I have a better idea. She outlined her plan, and I had to admit it was elegant in its simplicity and devastating in its potential impact. It was also risky for both of us. Are you sure about this? I asked when she finished. Rebecca's eyes were hard as flint. Absolutely. It's time Harrington learned that some women aren't for sale and some husbands aren't to be underestimated. The next morning, Rebecca dressed with particular care, a perfectly professional navy blue suit, but with a silk blouse that accentuated her figure without being inappropriate. The camera was once again concealed in her lapel. Remember, I said as she prepared to leave, get him to be explicit. Make sure the camera captures everything. She kissed me, lingering a moment longer than usual. I've got this. By tonight, James Harrington will wish he'd never heard my name. I spent the day preparing for what would come next. Using the evidence I'd gathered, I created 3 packages, one for the board of directors, one for the SEC, and one for the Seattle Times. Each contained copies of the harassment settlements and financial records, along with a detailed explanation of where to find the originals. At 3 p.m., my phone pinged with a message from Rebecca. Meeting in H's office at 4 showtime. At exactly 4 p.m., Rebecca knocked on Harrington's door. Through the camera feed, I watched him look up with that same predatory smile. Rebecca, come in. I was just thinking about you. Were you? She asked, taking a seat across from his desk rather than on the couch. Your assistant said this was urgent. It is. He stood, walking around to perch on the edge of his desk, towering over her. Have you thought about Aspen? I have, she replied carefully. I'm still not sure it's appropriate. His smile tightened. Appropriate? Rebecca, I thought we understood each other. This is how business works at this level. So you're saying my professional advancement depends on joining you in Aspen? For what exactly? Harrington leaned closer. For whatever develops between 2 consenting adults who recognize a mutual attraction. And if I don't consent, Rebecca asked, her voice steady, if I believe advancement should be based on merit rather than personal relationships? His expression hardened. Then perhaps you're not executive material after all. The Wilson account you've been pursuing, I could easily reassign it to Matthew's team. In fact, with restructuring coming up, your entire department could be reevaluated. That sounds like a threat, James. Not at all, he replied smoothly. Just business reality. Those who understand how to play the game advance. Those who don't. Rebecca stood, bringing herself almost nose to nose with him. Let me make sure I understand. You're saying if I go to Aspen and sleep with you, I keep my job and possibly get promoted. If I don't, I could lose the Wilson account or even be restructured out of the company? Harrington smiled, clearly misinterpreting her directness as interest. I wouldn't put it so crudely, but essentially, yes. The jet leaves at 7. Pack something minimal. His hand came up to brush against her cheek. I've wanted you since the day you walked in for your interview. Stop fighting it, Rebecca. She stepped back from his touch. I'll see you at the airport. Harrington's smile widened. Smart decision. You won't regret it. As Rebecca walked back to her office, she whispered into the camera. Tell me you got all that. Every word, I confirmed via text. Crystal clear. Come home. It's time for phase 2. By 6 p.m., Rebecca and I were in position at Seattle-Tacoma International Airport. Not at the main terminals, but at the private aviation area where corporate jets departed. We'd arrived separately and positioned ourselves discreetly. Rebecca in the exclusive lounge where Harrington would be waiting, me in a rental car in the parking lot with a clear view of the entrance. I watched as Peter Coleman arrived first, followed by 3 other Archer executives I recognized from company photos. Harrington appeared at 6:45, striding confidently into the lounge, overnight bag in hand. At exactly 6:55, my phone buzzed with a message from Rebecca. In position, showtime in 5. While Harrington and his colleagues waited in the lounge, unaware of what was coming, I executed the final phase of our plan. First, I sent identical emails to all 12 members of Archer's board of directors, including copies of Harrington's secret financial records and the harassment settlements. The subject line read simply, Urgent, CEO James Harrington's criminal activities. Next, I activated a program that would systematically forward the same evidence to the SEC, FBI, and selected journalists, set to send automatically if I didn't enter a cancellation code every 12 hours. Insurance in case things went wrong. At 7 p.m. sharp, I received a text from Rebecca. It's done. I watched the lounge entrance. Within minutes, Harrington burst out, face contorted with rage, frantically dialing his phone. Coleman and the others followed, looking confused and concerned. When Harrington spotted Rebecca walking calmly toward the parking area, he lunged after her, grabbing her arm roughly. "What the fuck did you do?" he shouted, loud enough for me to hear from 50 yards away. Rebecca yanked her arm free. "Exactly what you deserve." I was already out of my car, moving swiftly toward them. Coleman stepped between Harrington and Rebecca, trying to calm the situation. "James, stop! What's going on?" "She sent the board everything," Harrington snarled. "The settlements, the books, everything, while we were sitting right there." Coleman's face drained of color. "What are you talking about? What books?" "Don't play dumb, Peter. You've known about the European accounts for years." The other executives were staring now, shock and dawning comprehension on their faces. "I haven't sent anything yet," Rebecca said calmly, "but I will if you ever touch me again." I reached them just as Harrington lunged for Rebecca a second time. I stepped between them, catching his wrist in a grip that made him gasp. "That's my wife you're putting your hands on," I said quietly. "Your wife is a fucking snake," Harrington spat. "Do you know what she did? She recorded our private conversations, threatened to expose confidential company matters." "You mean she recorded you demanding sex in exchange for job security?" I twisted his wrist slightly, enough to make him wince. "Or are you more concerned about the embezzlement evidence?" Coleman stepped forward. "Embezzlement? James, what is he talking about?" "Nothing. He's lying." Harrington's eyes darted frantically between us. "They're trying to extort me. The company." "Actually," Rebecca said, pulling out her phone, "we've just sent the board these recordings of you explicitly threatening my job if I didn't sleep with you. The financial records we discovered were just a bonus." She pressed play, and Harrington's voice emerged clearly. "Those who understand how to play the game advance. Those who don't, don't." Coleman's face hardened. "James, is that true?" "It's out of context. She's been coming on to me for months." "Really?" Rebecca swiped to another recording, this one from their strategy session the day before. Harrington's voice again. "I've wanted you since the day you walked in for your interview. Stop fighting it, Rebecca." By now, airport security was approaching, drawn by the commotion. Harrington looked around wildly, like a cornered animal. "This isn't over," he hissed at us. "I'll destroy you both." "I don't think so," I replied calmly. "Not with what we have. But here's what's going to happen. You're going to resign quietly. You're going to forfeit your golden parachute and stock options. And you're going to never contact Rebecca again." "Or what?" he sneered. "Or tomorrow morning the SEC receives documentation of your creative accounting in Europe. The Times runs a front-page story on how Archer's CEO embezzled millions while sexually harassing female employees. And your wife, yes, we know about your wife in Bellevue and your girlfriend in Portland. They both receive very interesting packages." The blood drained from Harrington's face. "You're bluffing." "Try me," I said, releasing his wrist and stepping back. You have until 9 a.m. tomorrow to announce your resignation. After that, we press send. Coleman, who had been listening intently, pulled Harrington aside. They engaged in a heated, whispered conversation, Coleman's expression growing darker by the second. Finally, Coleman approached us. Ms. Morgan, on behalf of Archer Dynamics, I want to personally apologize for this situation. I assure you the board will address it immediately. I'm sure they will, Rebecca replied coolly, now that they've received our email detailing everything we know. You sent it already? Coleman paled. Just to the board, I clarified. The rest stays private, provided our conditions are met. Coleman nodded tersely. I understand. I'll convene an emergency board meeting tonight. As we walked away, Harrington called after us, his voice breaking with rage and desperation. You think this is over? I made you, Rebecca. You're nothing without me. Rebecca turned, regarding him with perfect composure. Actually, James, I just unmade you, and I don't even want the $10,000 you bet on me. Consider it a severance package. You're going to need it. The headlines the next morning were everything we'd hoped for. Archer Dynamics CEO resigns amid misconduct allegations. Board announces internal investigation of financial irregularities. Tech giant faces turmoil, stock plummets following Harrington departure. Rebecca was placed on paid administrative leave during the investigation. Standard procedure, Coleman assured her, not punishment. 3 weeks later, when the internal review concluded, she was not only reinstated, but promoted to SVP of Marketing, reporting directly to the new CEO. As for Harrington, he disappeared from public view. His reputation in tatters, his assets frozen pending the SEC investigation, his wife filing for divorce after learning about his girlfriend. Last we heard, he was trying to rebuild his life in Phoenix, working for a distant cousin's struggling startup. 2 months after the showdown at the airport, Rebecca and I were enjoying a rare night out at Morrison's, the same bar where I'd overheard Harrington's bet. As we sipped our overpriced cocktails, a waiter approached with a bottle of champagne. Compliments of the gentleman at the corner table, he said. We looked over to see Peter Coleman raising his glass in a subtle salute. Should we be concerned? Rebecca asked quietly as the waiter departed. I shook my head. If Coleman wanted trouble, we'd never see it coming. When we opened the accompanying envelope, we found a cashier's check for $10,000 and a note that read simply, Bet paid in full, with respect. Rebecca laughed, a sound of genuine amusement rather than bitterness. What should we do with this blood money? I considered for a moment. Donate it to the Legal Defense Fund for workplace harassment victims? Perfect, she agreed, tucking the check away. A fitting end to this sordid chapter. As we clinked glasses, Rebecca's eyes met mine with a mixture of love and newfound confidence. You know what the strangest part is? In some twisted way, I'm almost grateful to Harrington. Grateful? To that sociopath? She nodded. Before this happened, I was just climbing the corporate ladder, playing by rules written by men like him. Now I'm helping rewrite those rules. She took my hand across the table, and I discovered that my IT nerd husband is actually James Bond with a keyboard. I smiled, squeezing her fingers. Just don't expect me to hang from any more balconies. My covert operations days are officially over. When we got home that night, I shredded Coleman's check and deleted our insurance files. We didn't need them anymore. The game was over, and we had won not just the battle but the war. Some men think wealth and power make them untouchable, that they can treat people like pawns on a chessboard. James Harrington learned the hard way that sometimes the pawns fight back, and when they do, even kings can fall.